I mean, this was still a hugely disruptive force in an American election.
Look, Josh, look what we've spent 2 years trying to figure out. We shouldn't need to be having this conversation. We shouldn't have campaigns doing this, being saved by their own ignorance. The reason Trump Jr. didn't get charged, according to the report, is we couldn't tell whether he willfully broke the law, which means we don't know if he was smart enough to know that trying to get help from foreign powers, let alone inimical ones, is a bad thing to do that would equate to a campaign finance violation. Pretty low bar. He's lucky he didn't clear it.
That's right. And you look at the intelligence community assessment, and no one with a brain that isn't influenced by politics would look at the set of facts that our intelligence community came up with and conclude that the Russians didn't help, that they weren't favoring Trump over Hillary Clinton. Obviously, we've heard for a long time that the president looked at that as possibly, something going against his legitimacy. But the problem here, fast forwarding, all of that political noise, is that the Attorney General, we can't lose sight, has allowed those political talking points, the no collusion, to pierce that independent layer inside the Justice Department, and stood at that microphone and repeated those remarks, no collusion, but then also took it a step further. And this is what really concerns me. And I've talked to people who have this same concern now. Imagine a defense counsel, a defense lawyer out there who is now has a case pending for the Department of Justice. If they now look at what Barr did for the president, saying, well, there was no crime, so we can understand if the president was frustrated, if he was angry, and using that as some kind of excuse. I would imagine that any defense counsel worth their salt out right now is working on that same plan. If I have a case before DOJ, my client's being prosecuted, and I think he's been treated unfairly, I'm going to bill him as unfair, and I'm going to bill him as being, felt like he's
but they're
frustrated,
not president of the
and
United
use that
States.
as a defense.
I got to tell you,
this goes beyond this, though, Chris.
I think it's a good defense. I mean, please, feel free to push back on it, but I think it's a good defense for the president here. If you believe that the president knew that there was no Russian agent in his midst, that nobody was doing that, and that he was open for business, and he is a man of questionable ethics and scruples, so that's his mindset. I'll get it any way I can get it, right? And then when he finds out they're going to come after him for doing things that he doesn't believe were illegal, so now he's angry. And he's president of the United States, which means he can express his anger in ways that would be wrong for us. He can tell people to do things. He's in charge of all these things. He has, Article 2 constitutional mandate. I think he's got a good defense, at least in the public sphere.
It's a good defense, but the Attorney General should not be the one carrying the water.
100%.
If the president's lawyer wants to do that, that's fine.
100%.
But again, to stand there at the Department of Justice and make that case is very troubling.
Here's exactly what in his press conference today. Yet, as he said from the beginning, meaning the president, there was, in fact, no collusion. This came from the Attorney General's mouth today.
That's an irresponsible statement. One, because it's a point of advocacy, and two, it's not accurate in terms of the body of this report.
And the report also goes on to say, look, there was no criminal conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Russians, between the Trump campaign and the Russians. But it goes on to say, essentially there was a reason that Donald Trump was so scared of this investigation, because they knew it could dredge up things that could be personally uncomfortable.
Why would you react that way? If Sarah Murray finds out that they're looking into you about whether or not you colluded with Russia, that's not going to be your reaction.
And there's a line in the report that says, they also could have uncovered things that the president believed were crimes. Maybe that they weren't actually crimes, maybe it didn't rise to that level, but, there was reason for the president to be concerned, and you could argue, some attorneys would, that there was reason for the president then to try to obstruct justice.
The other thing I think what made him so concerned is that in the beginning of his presidency, when he kept going to the intelligence community, national security folks, the leader, and saying, hey, help me out here. I need you to go out there and distance me from the Russians, from the Russian investigation. And they were like, no way, this is the oddest thing. In fact, in the report, it says that the then deputy director of the National Security Agency basically said that it was the most oddest thing he had ever experienced in 40 years of working for the government. This is what he told the special counsel, just the president's behavior. So he knew that there was going to be concern about what was going on during the campaign. The other thing that I found really interesting in the collusion stuff was how, you have to be pretty stupid not to know what the Russians here were doing, right? I mean, really. There's a line here that said that they were using cutouts to go to the campaign, to go to the transition and say, hey, we need a reconciliation plan between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, what do you think that's about? I mean, do you really not know what that's about?
Right. Can we add to and Sarah hit on what I think is, thus far reading through this, the key point, and for those following along at home, Volume 2, page 76. This is that one line where it gets to the president's motive, because we've long been wondering, if you're innocent, why obstruct? I can tell you, I was an FBI agent. I never came across a subject who tried to obstruct an investigation that would have proven them innocent. And so we've been asking, why the obstruction? Why the lies? It gets to the point that Sarah just mentioned. The president was worried that they might uncover crimes. Folks, we can't get numb to that. That is not good the American people should not have to be worried that the president is trying to influence an investigation because he's afraid of where it might lead.
And he was influencing, even up to the Manafort trial. There's the special counsel's office said that the conduct towards Manafort indicates that the president intended to encourage Manafort to not cooperate in the investigation. You're the president of the United States.
Not supposed to do that. Is it a crime? No, not necessarily, but that doesn't make it okay. And I think that that's going to be said a lot, and how people feel about that is going to mean a lot. And one other quick tidbit, when we're going to go to break, there are going to be a million tidbits, but there are people who will say and argue, and you're going to see it all over the political right, you know, Manafort didn't really give anything to anybody. That's just speculation. Yes, he did. It's right in the report. He gave polling data to someone that he had reason to know had bad contacts within Russia, and he caused to continue to be given to that person. All right? And then he lied about it. See, now that is exactly what we're talking about. Somebody close to the president was doing something with respect to those he should have known were trying to interfere, and he was trying to get benefit from it. Does it make him a Russian agent? No, not necessarily. But is that the right thing to do? All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, everybody is methodically